There was no way he could have survived my cardinal heavenly lightning, Hanli muttered as he forced himself upright. Yet the moment he stood, weakness surged through him. His legs buckled, and he sank back down heavily. Lanyan hurried to his side to support him, but he waved her away calmly. "It's nothing. I've overdrawn my strength. A short rest will suffice." With that, he crossed his legs once more and began circulating his qi. Only then did Lanyan relax slightly. She remained beside him, gazing upward at the shattered ceiling of the underground chamber. Sunlight streamed down through the opening, casting a long, slanted shadow that stretched to Hanli's side. Nearby, Weeping Soul finished devouring the last traces of ghostly qi, letting out a satisfied burp as she returned to her human form. She strolled toward the thick, ancient tome to examine it, leaving Hanli to recover alone. Lanyan was about to follow when her body suddenly stiffened. Though she clearly felt herself moving, her shadow remained frozen in place. Before she could react, black light burst from that shadow, and a figure leapt forth, dagger flashing straight toward Hanli's chest. It was Guilingzi. The ambush came without warning. Neither Lanyan nor Weeping Soul had time to respond before the dagger was already inches from Hanli's heart. His eyes remained closed, as though utterly defenseless. Guilingzi's pale face flushed with excitement, eyes wide. Then Hanli's eyes snapped open. A cold sneer curled across his lips. "I knew you wouldn't give up so easily." Golden lightning crackled as his hand shot out, clamping around Guilingzi's throat in an instant. The dagger struck Hanli's chest, but failed to pierce even a fraction. Guilingzi froze, disbelief spilling from his lips. "How?" "That strike was never enough to kill you," Hanli said coolly. "Had you fled, I would have spared you. But you attacked the moment you sensed weakness. This is your own doing. You wouldn't dare kill me! This is the Nine Origins Temple!" Guilingzi shouted. "I prepared for every outcome before coming here," Hanli replied. "Killing you now would be easy, but I'd rather search your soul first." A translucent thread shot from Hanli's glabella, piercing into Guilingzi's as he activated the spirit refinement technique. Before his spiritual sense could even enter, Guilingzi's voice echoed mockingly in his mind. "You think you can search me? Accept my gift instead!" A surge of dread struck Hanli. He withdrew instantly and opened his eyes just as a strange purple talisman drifted out from Guilingzi's forehead. It imploded into a rune and shot straight into Hanli's glabella. Agony exploded through his head. The pain was beyond endurance. Hanli released Guilingzi, clutching his skull as he collapsed and rolled across the ground in torment. Guilingzi retreated at once, laughter ringing out. "What did you do?" Weeping Soul screamed. "I gifted him my corpse severance talisman." Guilingzi laughed wildly. "It's priceless to a late, great encompassment cultivator, but to one still early in the realm." His laughter grew more unhinged. Weeping Soul lunged at him, but Guilingzi dispersed into ghostly mist and vanished. His injuries were already crippling. He knew he would never reach the late stage. Otherwise, he would never have used that talisman on Hanli. A blood-curdling howl tore through the chamber. Hanli sprang upright, standing rigid like a spear driven into the earth. Weeping Soul rushed forward, but Lanyan blocked her. "Don't go near him!" Only then did Weeping Soul see it. Two expressions warred upon Hanli's face. One half wore a twisted, malicious grin. The other contorted in unbearable agony. "Master!" Weeping Soul cried. Hanli turned slightly, as though trying to answer, but the smiling half of his face refused to move. No words came. "This is disastrous," Lanyan murmured. With a roar, Hanli suddenly charged toward them. Lanyan stumbled back in fear, yet he halted mid-step, collapsing again as his hands clawed at his head. "Even his soul is unstable," Weeping Soul exclaimed. "He used a corpse severance talisman," Lanyan said grimly. "What is that?" "One of the most precious talismans in the true Immortal Realm. It forces the severance of a corpse soul. But that's only possible at the pinnacle of great encompassment." "Exactly. Hanli isn't ready. He's being forced to sever a corpse soul far beyond his limits." Horror dawned on Weeping Soul's face. Even with preparation, corpse severance often ended in failure. Cultivation collapse or death. To Hanli, this talisman was a death sentence. Can it be stopped? No. Once activated, it cannot be undone. He must suppress it himself. Lanyan knew such a feat was nearly impossible. Just then, Hanli surged up again. appearing before Weeping Soul in a blink. She barely crossed her arms before he struck. His face was wholly sinister now, grins stretched wide, drool spilling from his lips. "Your aura, it's closely bound to his," he murmured. A mountain-like force slammed into Weeping Soul. Her arms nearly shattered as she was hurled through the ruins, carving a deep trench before crashing into a stone wall. Blood poured from her mouth as she slumped, grievously injured. Han Li cackled wildly, his laughter twisted and savage, making Lanyan scarcely able to recognize him as the same man. Weeping Soul wiped away the blood she had spat into her palm. Her eyes filled with conflicted emotions. Lanyan turned toward her to speak, but Weeping Soul suddenly shouted a warning. Lanyan reacted instantly, flashing more than 1,000 feet away. A deafening boom followed as a massive crater blasted open where she had stood. "He's grown even stronger in this state," Weeping Soul cried out. Lanyan rushed to her side, voice trembling as she explained that the corpse severance talisman had already taken effect. Han Li's wicked corpse soul had seized control. If it could not be severed, it would fully devour him. Weeping Soul's expression hardened. They had to act, at least to restrain him. She told Lanyan to hold him off while she devised a plan. Before any further words could be exchanged, Han Li burst from the crater, soaring high before plunging down at terrifying speed. Even at a distance, crushing wind pressure swept over them. Weeping Soul closed her eyes and formed hand seals, forcing Lanyan to face him alone. Stepping forward, Lanyan produced a blue pouch. With the roar of waves, 10 blue water dragons surged forth in radiant light, tearing through the wind toward Han Li. Han Li roared and punched, obliterating the 2 leading dragons, while the remaining 8 coiled tightly around him. Water lightning erupted in unison, detonating around his body as he howled in pain. Suddenly, dark red light burst forth as his bloodline power flared, shockwaves scattering the lightning. Lanyan shouted to Weeping Soul, blood streaming from her mouth and nose, but received no reply. As the water dragons faltered, Lanyan spat a globule of blood essence onto the pouch. It flared brilliantly, and the 8 dragons unleashed spheres of blue lightning that converged on Han Li, exploding into a towering pillar. The dragons vanished, their power spent. Han Li stood revealed, body charred yet unbroken. He fixed Lanyan with a baleful grin, murderous intent locking onto her and freezing her blood. Despair overtook her as she collapsed, and Han Li lunged forward. At that instant, his eyes flickered strangely, and his body stiffened, tumbling forward helplessly. Weeping Soul appeared beside him, pressing her palm onto his crown, waves of dark red light surging out. She forced him into a seated position, completely immobilized, though blood seeped from the corners of her eyes from the strain. Forming rapid seals, she split the flesh at her glabella, revealing a vertical crimson eye. Translucent red threads shot forth, piercing into Han Li's brow. With a cry of pain, Weeping Soul's spiritual sense plunged into Han Li's consciousness. What she saw was a vast world in chaos. Howling winds, raging tornadoes, low-hanging storm clouds filled with constant lightning. Bolts struck toward her as she advanced, dodging desperately. She called out for her master, knowing the backlash would only worsen and time was running out. At last, she glimpsed a vague figure within the lightning clouds and rushed upward. A thunderclap illuminated a lone silhouette trudging toward denser lightning. It was Han Li. She called to him, and he turned. His face was split in 2, one side twisted with madness, the other grim and resolute. 2 voices spoke at once, one shocked, the other furious. Weeping Soul's heart sank as she realized his soul was already tearing apart. Lightning surged again, forcing her to dodge as she rushed closer. Han Li raised an arm to scatter the bolts, speaking with effort that his divided soul could no longer control the consciousness. She must leave or be harmed. Another voice followed, gleeful and cruel, promising to devour him and claim her next. Ignoring the wicked corpse soul, Weeping Soul declared that the only temporary solution was to seal Han Li's soul into slumber until a true cure could be found. The wicked soul mocked her plan, but Han Li himself rejected it. Time would only erode him further, and he might not survive to awaken again. Silence fell heavy between them. Han Li then spoke with final resolve. He had agreed to split himself apart, using the lightning and battle his corpse soul directly, letting fate decide who would sever the other. Weeping Soul cried out that it was suicide. He was far from strong enough. Hanli could only sigh that he had no other choice. The wicked soul snarled, threatening to kill her if she interfered again. Weeping Soul sighed softly and said she would follow him no matter the outcome, even if his body were claimed. The wicked corpse soul laughed triumphantly, boasting of its inevitable victory. All Weeping Soul could do was stand and watch as Hanli continued his lonely march into the raging lightning. After stepping into the sea of lightning, Hanli raised both hands and beckoned. In an instant, innumerable lightning arcs surged from every direction within the clouds below, converging violently. At the moment they fused, a colossal pillar of white lightning erupted skyward. Hanli stood at its heart, unleashing a terrifying scream of agony that echoed for nearly 20 breaths. Weeping Soul strained to look into the lightning pillar, but the radiance was blinding, revealing nothing. Only after a long while did the pillar gradually thin, its light dimming as it receded. Upon the lightning clouds stood two Hanlis. One examined himself with manic delight, while the other frowned deeply, wary and tense. Though they were clearly the same person, the difference between them was stark, and unease welled up in Weeping Soul's heart. The aura of the wicked corpse soul was plainly stronger. "At last, I'm free!" the wicked corpse soul roared, eyes blazing with resentment. "Do you know how unbearable it was to be suppressed by you? Now it's your turn!" Hanli's consciousness had barely steadied before being stirred again by that hateful fury. Within the divided world of his mind, the lightning clouds split in two. One side turned crimson black, the other sank into deeper darkness, lightning flashing without cease. "This world belongs to me now," the wicked corpse soul bellowed. Reaching out, the space behind it surged forward, swallowing territory. Hanli resisted at once, drawing upon his own half of the world. The two seas of clouds collided, cleaving the world in two, neither gaining ground. "You're nothing but a soul fragment now. How can you oppose me?" The wicked corpse soul sneered, lunging forward. Hanli shot back coldly, calling it nothing more than the embodiment of his own wicked thoughts, and rushed to meet it. Thus his consciousness became a battlefield, both manifested as tangible forms of spiritual sense. Unable to employ cultivation arts, relyingly on raw soul power. From the outset, Hanli was forced back, his opponent's spiritual sense overwhelming. As the wicked corpse soul clamped a hand around Hanli's throat, Weeping Soul could no longer stand idle. She flashed behind it and struck its back. Yet its head twisted around instantly, its body unmoved. "I was waiting for you," it snarled. Alarm flared in Weeping Soul's eyes as she tried to retreat, but it was too late. A terrifying, devouring force erupted, dragging her spiritual sense toward destruction. Regret struck her. She had fallen into a trap, and if her manifestation was devoured, Hanli would have no hope. At that critical moment, a massive white sword of spiritual sense formed and crashed down. It was Hanli's spirit stun thorn. Shock crossed the wicked corpse soul's face as it released Hanli and retreated. Hanli himself screamed in agony as the sword struck him. Yet the wicked corpse soul had already withdrawn over 1,000 feet. Weeping Soul's hand still pressed against its back. It mocked her loyalty, but she replied calmly, forming seals with her free hand. Dark red light surged forth, wrapping the wicked corpse soul in a spherical restriction. It laughed wildly, declaring the seal useless. But Hanli's voice rang out in praise. With the enemy temporarily restrained, Hanli reclaimed control of his consciousness and sat cross-legged, suppressing the chaos. In the underground chamber, Lanyan watched anxiously. Blood seeped from Weeping Soul's mouth, nose, and ears, while black, viscous blood flowed from every opening in Hanli's body. Suddenly, Hanli's eyes snapped open, glowing crimson. Lanyan recoiled in fright. Hanli ignored her, summoning translucent black chains and slapping them into his forehead before closing his eyes again. Within his consciousness, 36 black chains appeared, plunging into the clouds like black dragons, racing toward the sealed foe. Weeping Soul gasped. They were origin separation law chains. Only by separating himself earlier had Hanli been able to coordinate this plan and seize control. The wicked corpse soul scoffed and unleashed a crimson tempest that obliterated Weeping Soul's fragile manifestation and shattered the seal. Yet before it could act further, Hanli roared, golden runes blazing across the chains. Realization dawned too late. The spirit refinement technique had been fused into them. Lightning walls proved useless, as the chains pierced straight through, sealing the wicked corpse soul completely. Its furious cries faded as its power was locked away. Hanli had long prepared this trump card, never expecting to turn it upon himself. Later, within the underground space, Weeping Soul meditated weakly while Lanyan paced in panic, urging escape before stronger foes arrived. Just then, Hanli exhaled softly and opened his eyes. The crimson glow had faded, though something about him felt subtly changed. Reassuring them, he explained that the corpse soul was only temporarily sealed. To truly sever it, he would need to advance rapidly and open more immortal acupoints. At least time had been bought. After taking a pill, Hanli rose, resolute to press onward. Weeping Soul suddenly sensed something amiss and urgently sent word saying that Hanli's aura was fluctuating wildly. Hanli replied calmly that he had already noticed it himself. The corpse severance talisman had forcibly split off the wicked corpse soul, yet in doing so, it had also hastened the growth of his cultivation. He now stood in an unusual state. 460 immortal acupoints fully opened, while another 380 hovered between open and closed. This bizarre condition had effectively thrust him into a pseudo-mid-great encompassment realm. 840 acupoints were required for that stage, and he now stood with one foot inside the threshold and the other still outside, an awkward and unstable balance. Still, Weeping Soul noted that his cultivation strength had risen markedly. After a brief pause, she asked what their next move should be, since Kulin appeared to be targeting Jintong as well. Hanli hesitated, uncertain how to proceed. At that moment, Xiaobai's excited voice rang out in his mind, shouting for release and claiming he could sense Jintong's aura. Delighted, Hanli immediately let him out. Xiaobai took on his Pixiu form and sniffed the air vigorously before pointing deeper into the collapsed underground space. They soon reached a shattered stone gate at the rear of the hall and rushed through. Beyond it lay a short passage and another sealed stone gate, black and metallic, etched with writhing worm-like runes forming a powerful array. Xiaobai blasted it with white light, disrupting the formation but failing to break it. Before he could strike again, Hanli arrived and unleashed several streaks of golden sword chi. With thunderous impacts, the array was torn apart and the gate collapsed into rubble. With hundreds of acupoints half open, Hanli could absorb origin chi at an astonishing rate, greatly amplifying the might of his azure bamboo cloudswarm swords. Calling the others onward, they entered a smaller black stone hall. At its center stood a vast array, within which rested a black crystalline coffin. Several side chambers surrounded the hall, resembling a cave abode. Hanli suspected this was Gui Lingzi's lair. While Weeping Soul stared intently at the coffin, Xiaobai suddenly declared that Jintong's scent came from one of the rooms and forced the door open. Inside stood a massive white jade cage covered in talismans, with a large hole bitten through one corner. Hanli examined it and confirmed that Jintong had been imprisoned there and had escaped not long ago by biting her way out. Though Jintong was gone, Hanli calmly stated that the Kulin could still be tracked. Xiaobai eagerly agreed, but Hanli stopped him with a smile, pointing out that Gai Lingzi's cave abode surely held many treasures. Spurred on, they split up and began looting the chambers. Hanli entered a room filled with shelves of rare ores and materials of astonishing quality and quantity. With a sweep of his sleeve, he gathered everything into his flower branch domain. In another chamber, he claimed a towering golden pill cauldron radiating immense spiritual power. The next room held a stone table, protected by a black barrier, upon which sat black crystal spheres filled with flickering yin flames. Lanyan recognized them as profound yin divine lightning, a deadly weapon even to early great encompassment cultivators. As Hanli destroyed the barrier, the spheres grew unstable, but Weeping Soul swiftly intervened, using her law powers to suppress them. She explained that Hanli's lightning could easily trigger their detonation. Hanli promptly gifted the spheres to her, earning her heartfelt gratitude as she stabilized them with incantations. By the time Xiaobai returned, grinning broadly, all other chambers had been thoroughly pillaged. Gui Lingzi's cave abode was left completely stripped bare. Hanli turned his gaze toward Xiaobai and Lan Yan, and asked whether they had gained anything from their searches. Xiaobai burst out laughing, boasting that Guilingzi's cave abode was far richer than he had ever imagined. Lan Yan's eyes also flickered with excitement, though she quickly restrained herself and respectfully presented a storage tool, explaining that it held everything she had gathered from the 3 chambers she explored. Han Li calmly told her to keep 1/10 as compensation. Lan Yan thanked him sincerely, her heart surging with gratitude. Such wealth was something she would never have dared dream of before. Han Li then looked toward Xiaobai, who immediately clutched his bracelet and protested that everything inside belonged to him. With a helpless smile, Han Li replied that he only needed immortal origin stones and would take half, leaving the rest to Xiaobai. Xiaobai cheered loudly and began transferring items into another storage tool at once. At that moment, Weeping Soul spoke up, asking Han Li to follow her. She led him to the black crystal coffin at the array's center. Peering inside, Han Li saw a set of white remains covered in black runes, with crimson flames flickering within hollow eye sockets. A sinister aura poured forth, stirring even his wicked corpse soul. Weeping Soul explained that these were absolute heinous remains, refined from countless evil beings, and extremely effective for severing wicked corpse souls. She explained that the coffin was bound to the array and required his help to remove it safely. Han Li agreed without hesitation. As Weeping Soul acted, dense black chi surged into the array, summoning 8 glacial black chains that bound the coffin. She fused white light into them, weakening their aura, and shouted for Han Li to strike. 8 azure bamboo cloud swarm swords flashed forth, shattering the chains. Black radiance burst out as the coffin rose, and Weeping Soul captured it with a giant black hand before drawing out the Yama cauldron and absorbing the coffin within. She bowed in heartfelt thanks. Soon after, Lan Yan and Xiaobai returned and handed over their storage tools. Han Li inspected them and felt pleased. Though there were no immortal origin stones, the haul of spirit medicines and materials was still worth tens of millions. He quickly decided to pursue Kulin, leading the group back through the collapsed hall. Clearing rubble with ease, they reached a crossroads. Using his infernal devilish eyes, Han Li found that Kulin had erased nearly all traces, his concealment flawless. Coldly snorting, Han Li pushed his ocular arts to the limit, dark purple vortexes forming in his pupils. At last, he caught an almost imperceptible glimmer of chaotic golden light leading down one path. Confirming the trail, he led the others onward. Nearly a full day passed as they sped through endless underground passages. Ghostly chi faded away, and many restrictions ahead had already been destroyed by Kulin. Lan Yan admitted she had never known such tunnels existed. Eventually, Han Li spotted another faint golden glow and halted the group. As a precaution, he sent the others into the flower branch domain and concealed himself before proceeding alone. At the tunnel's end stood a wall of golden ore radiating powerful metal law fluctuations. Han Li recognized it as Heaven End Gold Rock, rare and immensely valuable, and couldn't help but chuckle at his growing fixation on wealth. His smile faded when he noticed a hole gnawed through the wall, with faint light shining beyond. A restriction blocked his spiritual sense, hinting that something even more intriguing lay on the other side.